Piriformis. What are our considerations here? How much flexion at the hip? Very good. So there's two ways to do this stretch. This one, we will tell you which variation, because if you have a patient that cannot flex their hip to 90 degrees, then you have to do the other option. I like to flex to 90 and beyond whenever possible. Let's slide over towards me, patient. So we have the version that was like our MLT, where I'm taking her here, and then I am internally rotating her, and then bringing her across. And again, I'm looking for that pelvis to not be lifting. So that's when, if I apply that approximation, just slightly pushing down. Again, I don't want to ram her femur into her hip, but I do want her pelvis to not move on me. So we're here, maximum internal rotation first. Is that okay, patient? And then I'm going to bring her across here. You feeling a stretch at all?
Yeah.
Where do you feel it?
Where do I feel it? Right.
Okay, very good. That's where we should be feeling it. When we're checking in on symptoms with stretching, we should always be asking where. Ideally, you don't want to ask, are you feeling a stretch? You want to say, are you feeling anything? What are you feeling? Where? So we don't want to guide them into what they may or may not be feeling. For this one, we can definitely do our contract, relax. I would switch my hand contact here. 5, 4, breathe, 2, 1. Relax, bring her across for 10 seconds. Do that for multiple rounds. This one, I won't even ask you guys to do an agonist contract, because it's just an awkward one to try and control. Again, I have to release stabilization. She'll probably end up rotating at her pelvis, so I'm not even going to do that. And then the other option, if we're flexing the hip more, then we are going to maximally externally rotate. And then with this one, I'll generally guide up towards the opposite shoulder a little bit more. I don't want to fully go here, because then I might hit glute instead of piriformis. So if we stay at 90 degrees and just go a little bit beyond as I'm going across. How are we feeling here, patient? Big stretch? Okay. And then same thing, hip abduction, just switch my hand here. Go ahead and press into my hand. 5, 4, breathe. Nice big exhale. And relax, and then I can take her further. This one I also feel like is a little bit easier to apply that grounding force to prevent her hip from rotating. We should be able to give a home exercise program for stretching. So that could be one of like the questions for stretches. So what would we do to stretch this one by ourselves? That's a pretty basic one. Yep. So, are you just going to actively do it, or?
Bend the other knee.
Yep, you can do that. This will get potentially into glute a little bit more, because you're not adducting as much. What you can also do is grab behind this leg, guide across your body here. So this will be a little bit more specific to piriformis. And then I really think about like pigeon stretch being a pretty good pigeon piriformis. And there's a bunch of variations you can do there. Seated is one that a lot of people like. So coming across here, pressing down to get that rotation, flex. If you bring the leg across a little bit more into adduction, again, that you'll be more likely to hit piriformis than glute. And then we also have a standing variation on the table. This is my personal favorite. So you can get here, come down, reach forward. And I always have the ankle off the edge, because I feel like if I'm doing it with my foot on here, or if I'm doing full pigeon on the floor, cranks on my ankle. I don't like that. I don't like to do that to my patients. If you want to get really fancy, we got our single leg. I've been getting back into my workout routine. I can do stuff again. I'm kind of a big deal. I bought a new pack of socks and I didn't know those ones came in it, and I cracked up laughing when I read those socks. Jess was like, what are you doing?
What a dad.
The little things.
Yeah, little things.
Is there a question back here?
Oh, yeah.
Got distracted by my dill?
I did. So sometimes when I'll be doing the stretch, I'll notice if my angle of my leg, if it's more flexed, then it's like almost a different stretch. I almost feel like if it's like 90 degrees,
Well,
then
is
I
that
can't.
flex or ABW?
Is it, or
Like this?
actually
Externally
rotation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if your leg is more parallel to the ground, you're in more external rotation, which is going to, in this position, be more specific to piriformis. So that's one of the ways that doing this is kind of hitting piriformis more than glute. If you're here, it might shift more posterior into glute. You also have a whole line of muscles here. So we always talk about piriformis, the muscle action changing. Did I talk to you guys about what other muscles are likely also sequentially changing their action as you rotate more? What muscles do you think I might be talking about? What runs with? Yeah, your obturators, your gemellis, and quadratus. So P, go, go, Q. As you're going into more flexion, you are likely going to hit each one of those changing their muscle actions a little bit more. I think we talked a little bit about like AA1, supraspinatus. Is it an external rotator or not? If you're internally rotated, supraspinatus is probably going to be externally rotating you a little bit. If you're externally rotated, it's probably going to help internally rotate you a little bit. So muscles have their listed actions, but as your joints get to all these end range positions and line of forces change, the muscle activation will be a little bit different. That is where research would probably start to vary a little bit more as far as what is saying what, and it's more theoretical. So the clinician in you should be thinking about all of those things when we're talking about patients. But again, when it's coming to written exams, you're just going with straightforward what textbooks teach you. So you need that base knowledge to understand the concepts, but then the clinical mind